If you can get people into their feelings, then they're out of their mind. And people buy on emotion and they justify with logic, right? So people make emotional decisions to purchase and then they justify and tell their wife or their friends or their husband why they bought it using logic. But in an emotional state, people will make very big decisions.
So you have a passion for fitness and the desire to start your own business, but launching a massively successful fitness business is extremely complex. The systems, operations, hiring, firing, coaching, sales, and marketing are critical to success. Where do you even start? This show will give you the answers. Here is Bedros Keuilian and Bryce Henson, your hosts of the Fitness Franchise Podcast, a show dedicated to helping fitness entrepreneurs launch and grow successful gyms.
Welcome back, friends, to another incredible episode of the Fitness Franchise Podcast. And before I tee up today's guest, I want to give you a reminder to give us a like and subscribe on YouTube and write us an awesome review on iTunes. That way we can keep producing this content for you for free. So now today's guest, who's a dear friend of mine who was born and raised in both California and the United Kingdom, to which his own accord makes him sound Australian. Now he's a stand-up comedian, and he's also known as one of the top best copywriters in the entire planet. In fact, since starting his craft in 2014, he sold over $100 million in products and services online via email. Mr. Ian Stanley, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me, man. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, this is an interesting podcast because normally we're at our headquarters in Chino Hills, but we're here in Austin, Texas, which you're about to give a keynote for a mastermind.
Yes, and I used to live here, so it's fun to be back. Yeah, I was here for 4 years.
4 years, yeah.
Yeah.
And where do you live now?
In Boise, Idaho.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, lots to cover today. I'm super excited about this. Copywriting is really the theme of this, which is your zone of genius. But before we get to that, can you give us the backstory? Our audience would love just color in the details of who you are and the backstory.
Yeah. I mean, there's long stories and short stories about it. I'd say for the context of what we're going to talk about, when I was, 19 years old, I was living in a mobile home park in Aptos, California. I was transferring to Santa Cruz. I played tennis in college, and so I was transferring, and I was living in this weird little mobile home and trying to figure out how to make money online. And so I was clicking on ads and buying all sorts of horrible products. I signed up for Herbalife at one point, which is a complete scam. If you're with Herbalife, I'm sorry, but it's a bunch of soy-based garbage, and it's basically an MLM, but they sort of sold it in a tricky way. So like, you don't have to talk to your friends and family. Don't worry, you don't have to talk to your friends and family. And the first step was talk to your friends and family. And I was like, wow, I'm an idiot. I can't believe I bought this. So I learned about affiliate marketing and ClickBank and stuff when I was 19. And I remember thinking they had this thing, it was like your commission is 50%. And I thought that half of the people who clicked on an ad would buy the product. So I was like, I'm gonna be so rich. I'm gonna buy these Google ads and I'm gonna be a millionaire by the time I leave college. Wasn't the case. And so basically over the next couple of years, I ended up writing an ebook on how to pick up women. That was my first, not like physically pick them up, but like, how to meet women and stuff.
Yeah.
Because, every 20-year-old knows everything there is to know about that. And so I was selling some dating products, made probably $1,000 or $2,000 during college. But I remember I made a sale during a final, and I came out of class and I had $113.84 had been made, and I was like, oh my God, these guys are all losers. They're gonna go get real jobs and I'm gonna be so rich. It didn't happen as fast as I thought it was gonna happen, but basically from there I left college and I was teaching tennis and I was trying to sell stuff online. But what I was doing is I was doing customer service, I was trying to create a product, you do the customer service, you build the website, you run the traffic, you write the copy, you do all these different things, and everybody in like when it was forums back then was poor, and they were all trying to do everything, and they were all broke, and I was like, this doesn't seem to make sense. So I committed to learning one skill, and that was copywriting. And so this when I was...
Why copywriting?
I liked it. I enjoyed writing. I like persuading people.
Okay.
I feel like I've been persuading people since I was like 3.
Okay.
My mom always tells a story. I was like 3 years old, and she was like, go clean your room and I'll give you candy. And I was like, no, you give me candy and then I'll clean my room. And she was like, shit, this is gonna be a pain in the ass, kid.
Uphill battle.
And so I've been arguing since I was young. And I feel like writing was a way to also slow down my brain a little and kind of express my thoughts in a way that made sense. And so I actually hated writing in college. That was the only class I stopped taking because it was all subjective. I took this class because as an athlete, you get to pick your classes first. So you get first dibs, and I was like, I'm taking this class. It was about like the hero's journey, and I wanted to write a paper about Batman. That's all I wanted to do, about why he's the ultimate altruist. I wrote this paper and I got a B, and that was my only B that year, and I was so pissed because it was this subjective. This teacher was like, you didn't use enough sources and you didn't write it in the way that we want. And I'm like, I don't need 10 pages of your bullshit bibliography to write a compelling argument. Just let me write. What I think a lot of people find out about writing is they don't actually hate writing. They hate writing under the constraints that they've learned in a school setting, where it's like your essay has to have this much going on. And it also ruins people's ability to write because you're supposed to write a certain amount of pages.
Right.
And so you learn how to do the extra spacing.
Right.
And you do double tap after every period, and to make it more pages. And what they're literally teaching you how to do is pad a piece of paper with unnecessary words, which makes you a bad writer. Great writing is subtracting out all the words that don't need to be said and just putting in only the good stuff, or editing out the fluff. And in school, we learn to just add fluff and BS so that we get to our 10-page minimum for our paper.
Right.
And so I thought I didn't like writing. And then it turned out I realized that was the skill that I sort of enjoyed. I wasn't really a media buyer type of person. It's typically like engineers do really well with like buying traffic and stuff. And I just really I would just write stories. Like the first piece of copy I ever wrote, I didn't even know it was called copy at that time. It was just this story about getting mugged, actually, and about violence training and how that related to meeting women. And so it was like that story worked. And so I was like, I can learn, I think the most valuable skills for an online business are, copy and selling, if you want to call them the same thing, and media buying, and then an operations person. If you have those three things, you can do really well.
But what about, it's interesting, Ian, because for me, I like persuasion as well, but out of the 4 high impact skills, copywriting being one of them, I feel like I have the most to learn. I learned sales through belly-to-belly sales, talking with someone, presenting, etc. So kind of diving back in, why did that not speak to you? Granted, I say that tongue-in-cheek because you're about to present, do a half-day workship with our Fit Body Bootcamp owners tomorrow. But why, the presentation, the sales aspect, why did you go copy compared to those?
I'm lazy. I mean, honestly, so when I was coaching tennis, I was 22 years old making $70 to $100 an hour. And that's a lot of money at that age, especially a lot of it's cash. And so, but what I realized was if I wasn't on the tennis court, I wasn't getting paid. And I hated that I had to trade my time for money. If I wasn't on a court, I couldn't make money. So if I wasn't present, there was no money coming in. And to me, I wanted to be able to wake up in the morning and have had money come in while I was sleeping. I wanted to be able to go do fun stuff and play sports and go outside and still be making money. So it just came down to that. I saw the golden handcuffs of, I could have made 6 figures. The 35-year-old, 45-year-old tennis coaches were making the same money as me, but they were working more and they were tired. And if it rained, you couldn't make money. If it was really hot out and people didn't want to come that day, you didn't make money. So I love selling high ticket stuff and selling face-to-face or on the phone. To me is like cheating compared to copy, because with copy, I'm trying to get 1 million people to be able to read this and get 1 or 2% of them to buy this thing. So I've got to appeal to this broad audience. I had a water filter company that I ended up selling to what was the fastest growing startup in Canada at the time. And when you're selling water filters, it's like people are like, oh, what's your avatar? I'm like, people who drink water. So it's everyone. So you have to be pretty persuasive in that situation. But when I do any phone sales or anything, like when we launched a new product with my company, I literally closed every single person. And there's some cheating there too, because these are my people who are fans of me on my list and stuff. But literally not one person said no for now, and then the next day signed up.
But are you talking about in a sales environment, like belly to belly on the phone?
On the phone, yeah. So they've applied, and then I'm talking to them. But it's like the way that John Carlton put it, which makes a lot of sense to me, is copy is just salesmanship in print. So my thing, and if you think about a car salesman, if they're not on the lot, they're not making money. But if you can write a great ad, you can make money even when you're not working. So for me, it all came down to that. Was I wanted to make money from the laptop. I knew in college I was either going to work for the government or for myself. I thought I was going to go into the military, and I knew I'm not employable. I don't like being told what to do, which is ironic because I thought I was going to go into the military and definitely be told what to do.
Yeah.
But it just appealed to me as I just knew that everybody who was trying to do all these different things, they were almost all failing. And so I decided to take copy seriously, and I would handwrite sales letters for an hour a day. So I would sit down and I would literally hand copy out sales letters for an hour every morning.
Pre-existing sales letters.
Who? So there's a program called Copy Hour. It's my buddy Derek Johansson. He's become one of my closest friends, one of the best people in the whole world.
Okay.
I bought the program, and my indicator of success then was just did I hand copy for an hour that day?
You bought his program.
I bought his program.
That's how you got introduced.
That's how I got into doing it that way. I'd heard that there's like, people say if you hand copy, so literally by hand, you get a notepad and you're writing by hand, just copying what's written there, and it trains your subconscious mind to understand sales and persuasion and, you know, copywriting. And so I would do that for an hour every single day.
The program that you bought though, like, do they have templated letters?
So they have a bunch of old school copy, which is better to look at in a lot of ways because you want to be able to write copy that can convert to a cold audience who's never heard of you. Mm-hmm. So if you go and look at some influencer or some well-known person in our space who's got, you know, something that's converting, and you look at that, well, it may only be converting because of the person, because they have a celebrity factor or something like that. So looking at the old school ads, ads from the 60s, 70s, 80s, a lot of them have claims that you definitely can't make anymore. But that was really how I learned, was hand copying those. So he has them all like laid out, and then I created my email copywriting program. It's called 80/20 Email Copy, and I give people examples of emails to hand copy. It's the same thing. It just there's nothing that gets you there faster than hand copying stuff.
And I'm sure it depends on the person, right? But how long did you have to do this? I'm curious.
I did it every day for 90 days.
So in the grand scheme of things,
you can do it in
long.
4 weeks. No, I mean, I can make somebody a very good email copywriter in 2 to 4 weeks.
Really?
They can, yeah. If they do the hand copying, it's very fast.
Okay.
Because it's training your subconscious and your unconscious mind. Because when you're writing, you don't want to write from a conscious place where you're thinking about every word. You want to be just unfiltered writing without stopping. Like the best rule I can ever give somebody for writing is stop stopping. So when you're typing and you're like, oh, thinking, that's stop thinking. Just keep typing. Doesn't matter if it's total garbage or whatever it is, just keep typing and build that habit of always tapping the keys, always tapping the keys. So that really was the turning point for me. Was I learned that skill, then I got a job working with the Credit Solution program. I was the copywriter writing all the email copy for everything in the BSLs.
At this point though, you've obviously developed a skill.
No, I mean, I was just a 22-year-old kid who wanted to make money online, and I applied for a job that would have been actually here in Texas, and I was like the second to last person, and they didn't pick me, but the recruiter had this other thing, and actually the listing was like, you have to know HTML and domain, all this crazy, like it had like 25 things you had to be good at, and one of them was copywriting, and it was like a $25 an hour job too, and so I said, I'll do the copywriting thing, and he paid me $20 an hour. Is how I started. We had a 1.2 million person email list, and so I would write all the copy, and we would split test 4 to 8 different variations on every email.
Would you write those variations?
I wrote all of them, yeah. Okay. And I wrote all the different subject lines, and I had this spreadsheet that basically would dissect what worked and what didn't, and so that's how I created all the principles and stuff that I then went on to teach. Was if you have enough people on a list, you have enough statistical significance to actually get real data. And so we were just testing like crazy, and that's the problem. A lot of copywriters don't get feedback on what they write, so they don't know what works and what doesn't. But
you're testing anything from the copy, but also like the headlines. I mean, what are the frameworks?
I would mainly test subject lines, body copy, not as much because the copy is what it is. I would test link text. So so if you have a subject line that says, you know, how to get toned abs. Let's just say something very, you know, generic like that, right? Weird trick to get toned abs, right? If your link text where they click to the next page is how to get, you know, weird trick to get toned abs, exactly the same as the subject line, you're gonna potentially double your click-through rate because just that little thing.
There's congruency.
Because it's congruent with the subject line. So testing that, you know, 10 times, you see that every single time I did that, it would improve click-through rate. So we'd test stuff like that. I'd test whether or not we needed a PS in the email. How many links should there be in an email? There's a lot of people who say you should have 3 links in an email. I think you should have 1 in most emails because email is all about one idea. just one thing to focus on. So if you're trying to do 3 things, send them links to 3 different things, 4 different things, they're getting distracted. And you want to just keep them focused on one core idea, have a link, a call to action, whether that's to a blog post, a YouTube video, a sales page, one link outperformed 3 links every time. So we just tested a bunch of stuff. And so that's where I got good at email copy, created my own course, and then I was at Crisis Education where we sold a bunch of survival products, and we had a water filter company that...
About how long were you at the previous?
I was at the 18 months at the Credit Solution Program.
And before you get in that, we're just going to take a step back for our audience, because our audience is interested in fitness, business, entrepreneurship, and while our fitness program, Fit Body Bootcamp, is a brick and mortar, I think I want to just reiterate the value of copywriting, because to your point, you want to make money while you sleep, and really that's the dream for any business owner, to move away from trading dollars for time and actually create a business system where you can actually earn income while you sleep. And copywriting is an incredible tool. And I think I interjected before. You talked about good operations team, a good copywriter,
good traffic,
good traffic buyer,
media buyer, traffic.
So those are just core fundamental aspects. In our business, the fitness business, the operations would be the coaching, the fitness, et cetera.
Right.
But copywriting and behind traffic is incredibly important. So I just want to kind of take a quick second to really highlight that before you dig even further.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, and to focus on, and we can go into fitness specific stuff, but the next company I was at, we sold a bunch of water filters and then supplements as well. So a lot of health stuff, and ended up selling over $100 million worth of stuff over those few years of working with that company. And then when I started writing for other companies, when I left, I was there for about 18 months as well.
Now, were you working in a physical brick and mortar or office, or are you working from home?
I was at an office.
Okay. Because the reason I ask is because when I think copywriters, the dream is they're not working in a brick and mortar; they're working from home.
Yeah, you're writing in your underwear. I mean, literally, it was funny because I'd read ads that were like, write from your, in your underwear from your kitchen and become a millionaire, right? And I wasn't a millionaire, but I was making like $5,000 a month at the Credit Solution Program at the end, and I was working like 10 hours a month. I was traveling. I was in Scotland and England, going around, and which probably worth saying. I'm half English, half American.
I wanted to bring that up at some point.
Well, what happens is if I don't say where I'm from, people sit there the whole time going, I can't listen to him because I need to know where he's from first.
Yeah.
So half English, half American, which means everyone thinks I'm Australian. And there's people listening now going, oh my God, that's what I thought. I thought he was an Australian guy. That's what I was thinking. And
dude, full-time copywriter, part-time comedian, just want to put that out there, man.
Yeah, I do stand-up comedy as well. At some point it'll be part-time business owner and full-time comedian. Making the transition.
Love it.
So we sold a bunch of stuff there. That's when I started getting on camera and doing stuff and selling, being on camera, and would sort of speak copy. At that point too, I'd written enough copy where I can kind of go on and just speak what I need to do without having to write everything.
You speak copy. This is crazy concept. And my co-host, Bedros Koulian, B, he's a brilliant copywriter, entrepreneur, etc. At one point after some summit, I pulled him aside. I'm like, dude, B, you speak in freaking sales copy.
Yeah.
So this is actually the second time I've heard that. So talk to me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of why hand copying I think is so valuable, because you're training your conscious and unconscious mind to or your subconscious and your unconscious to be able to understand persuasive arguments and sales without thinking, right? So I'd written enough copy because we were doing a new funnel every 2 to 4 weeks. So I was writing a new VSL, a new video sales letter every couple weeks. And a lot of copywriters, it takes them like 6 weeks to 3 months to write a sales letter, and I was doing them in, the longest I've ever taken was 2 weeks. And then normally it's like a couple of days, and I just write.
Crank it out.
And a lot of that's because people overthink a lot of stuff. But once I started getting on camera, it was just like, I've written so much of this that I can just kind of say it. And I know the structure of things. I know what order things are supposed to go in. I know sort of, one of the biggest copy mistakes that so many people make is their sequence. They have the right words, or the right, ideas, but in the wrong order. Mm-hmm. So the biggest thing I do, like when I do consulting for like a sales page, most of the time the best part of their sales letter is like 3/4 of the way into it, and I'm like, oh, this should be the beginning. So they're presenting their argument in the wrong order, right? And they're not setting things up. And these days,
the
people lose interest right away.
And I was sorry to interject. My point or my thought was you put it at the beginning because you need to grab their attention.
Your absolute best stuff goes at the start of any sales letter, any email, like whatever it is. You've got to lead with something super compelling. Even if it's not the best part, it's got to create the most curiosity because people want to leave. People are sitting there waiting to leave the page if they're clicking on a sales letter or a VSL, or they're trying to decide if they're going to join a gym or whatever it is. They're trying to get out of that unless you compel them and pull them in.
Through curiosity.
Through curiosity. That's the biggest thing at the start. Storytelling, opening with stories tends to be the most effective way to do it.
Okay.
Like the most probably famous sales letter I wrote, the first line is, John didn't know he was going to die that night. He went to sleep like every other American and he never woke up. Which I don't mean to laugh about. I'm sorry, John.
Was that the headline, or was that?
That was the first line of the VSL.
Okay.
So that was literally how it opened in the sales letter. And so, and it's just that curiosity of what's going to happen. How did John die? Like if you can write a great first sentence, the first line is the most important. So if you can write an incredible first sentence, you can get people to read the rest of the thing. Like the first line of my book is, I thought I was going to kill people for a living, which is true. But that's, it's curious enough to be like, I just picked up this book about persuasion and here's this guy saying he thought he was going to kill people for a living.
Yeah.
I'm at least going to read the second sentence. The point of the first sentence, to get them to read the second sentence. Point of the second sentence, get them to read the third sentence, and so on. You're not trying to sell the product or the thing at the beginning. You're trying to get people in a frame of mind where they're ready to buy.
Okay. So continue on about the sequence. The very beginning, like it needs to be the most curiosity.
Very beginning is the most important part. Like if you're going to test, even like we run, we spend a few grand a day on YouTube ads, and the ads will fatigue. But if you just put a new lead, a lead would be the first, let's say 5 seconds to 2 minutes.
And you're talking about VSL now.
On a YouTube ad.
Okay.
So, and people can skip after 5 seconds, right?
Yeah.
So you have 5 seconds to get their attention.
Yep.
Just by testing new leads, like literally just the first 30 seconds, I'll record a new one on my iPhone and it'll work because it's new. People also, like the companies that are most successful right now are just testing more ad creative than anybody else.
Just because of ad fatigue.
Just ad fatigue. Okay. And like, it's just swings, right? If you take 50 swings, you're likely, it's the 80-20 principle, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna get 1 or 2 that work. If you take 5 swings, you might get 1. And it's ad fatigue as well. And also you lengthen your ability to run ads. When you've got 10 ads running, they're gonna fatigue much slower than 1. Like we've had 1 primary ad running for the past 5 months, and it's starting to fatigue at this point where it's
after
like
5 months?
5 or 6 months, yeah.
And
well, it's not fatigue, not like big time fatigue. There are a lot of markets. It's long, it's longer. It's it's a big market, and it's a different angle because most of the people in the how to make money online industry are just douchebags with Lambos and mansions. So I just recorded one actually the other day, which we'll test. That I'm like, look, I want to show you my new Lambo. I'm not saying you're gonna get one, but check it. And I walk over to my truck, and I've got a toy Lamborghini in my truck that's this big, and I'm like, check this out. And then I'm just like, if you want to learn from some douchebag marketer with his mansions and Lamborghinis, then go somewhere else. But if you want to learn a real way to make money online, stay here. So it's
Ian,
like
we're just inching closer to that full-time comedic.
I know. I'll keep my businesses. I'll keep running them, but it doesn't take too long. But definitely going to be full-time in comedy within the next year.
Dude, I love it. But anyways, I was interjecting. But you're saying just taking them closer and closer to, I guess, whatever the call to action is.
Yeah. Well, just opening up with your most interesting stuff. Like people just bury the interesting stories. Like they'll have some story about how they ended up in the hospital, and it's like 3/4 of the way down this sales page, or it's, let's say they're selling on the phone and they don't tell that story or whatever it is. Like I would open with, I didn't think I'd end up in the hospital that night. Right, that's literally, and then what I do is I turn everything into formulas. So if something worked once, I test it a couple more times, and then it becomes proven, because I don't want to have to be creative all the time. I'd rather just rely on stuff that I know works. So there's
like the
variations.
Framework of the same type
the same framework. Okay. So John didn't know he was going to die that night. I was at a conference like a month ago, and there was a guy whose opening line was like, James didn't know he was going to lose his leg that night, whatever it was. It was like, literally, it was my exact line just changed to fit that. And it's like, well, that's what people are going to do. So if you have something like that, like for my gut supplement, and I haven't used this as my lead yet, but I'll try it, is, I didn't know I was going to end up in the hospital that night, which is what actually happened to me. Right? It should be a true story, first off. After 17 hours of constant pain, I finally had to go to the hospital and end up in the ER, not knowing that I was going to be diagnosed with Crohn's disease, right? So that could be my first 2 sentences, and that's probably going to be more compelling than most, just because it's a, unexpected and emotional stories will drive more sales than just about anything else.
I mean, I can kind of figure that out, but can you elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah, so I have a story I tell about my dog. We were talking about this a little before, but I have this, Feed the Wolf tattoo, and I have this story I tell about my dog and how he almost died. And there are times when I tell it on stage and I get teary-eyed, and I told it at Empire Mastermind.
You did?
I opened up with it, and Byrce was there at the time, and all he said was after I finished, he's like, "That's a really good story." And I was like, thanks. But it's a very emotional story, and if you can get people into their feelings, then they're out of their mind. And people buy on emotion and they justify with logic, right? So people make emotional decisions to purchase, and then they justify and tell their wife or their friends or their husband why they bought it using logic. But in an emotional state, people will make very big decisions. And so if you can get somebody into, when I got really into advertising and copywriting and everything, you can't watch a commercial from the perspective of a normal person because you're so wrapped up in how it's working, what are they doing. So I used to just watch ads, and you're trying to learn from them. And I realized that the ones that were the best ads were the ones where I stopped watching as a critic and just became a consumer of the ad, because something emotional happened and I was suddenly just in it. Or laughter, laughter can create emotion as well. But if you can get people just feeling instead of thinking, nobody in the world sells results. You sell feelings, and that result creates a feeling. So people say, oh, we sell results in advance and all this. Well, the reality is you don't sell results in advance. You sell the feeling of that result. So you say to somebody, you have a 6-pack, right? Let's take, selling a fitness membership to somebody, right? Like, it's not, oh, your result is we're going to get you ripped. It's, imagine what it's going to feel like to take your shirt off and your wife sees you and she can't get her hands off of you, where she looks at you like she did when you first met each other, where your son looks up to you and instead of saying, hey, Dad, why do you have boobs? That's like a sales letter that people have written, but it's true. Like, hey, Dad, why do you have boobs? Instead, they go, wow, Dad, how did you get so muscular? It's tapping into that feeling. If you can take somebody into their family dynamic, and I don't mean this in a manipulative way, but like, if you can take somebody into their family dynamic or their friends, or that you don't sell, people don't buy Lamborghinis. 1% of people who buy Lamborghinis buy them because they love to go fast and they love the look and the feel of a Lamborghini. 99% of people who buy Lamborghinis buy them because of what other people are going to think of them.
Yep, the feeling they have.
Yeah, it's the feeling. Imagine how it's going to feel to drive down South Beach Boulevard in Miami and have everybody looking at you in this thing. Aren't you the type of guy who wants everybody, to think you're the biggest badass? If you drive in Miami, all it is just Lamborghinis. It's either Lamborghini SUVs or Lambos, and they think that by revving their engine very loud, everybody thinks they're cool. Nobody's excited about it. Nobody likes your loud engine. That's a little PSA to everybody out there. Please stop revving your engine. We get it. You have insecurities that you're making up for. But these people are trying to, imagine driving, if you're selling a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, imagine that feeling of driving that up to your parents' house and being able to tell your parents you made it. It's that type of stuff. It's like, I had a guy who signed up for 90 Days to Freedom, which is our main program, and he had told me on the phone, he's like, I'm so tired of telling my parents that I'm going to make it and still being a failure. And it's sad to hear that. And it's like, so for me, it was like, man, imagine what it would feel like. And I say these exact words. I say, imagine what it would feel like to be able to go to your parents' house and be able to say, look, guys, I'm actually doing it. I am making money online. I'm making something of myself. And at that point, there's a complete turn from, and this guy was super skeptical and different stuff. And I wasn't even trying to sell him. I was just like, if it's a fit, it's a fit. But at that point, I was like, oh man, this is what this guy wants. It's about finding, and that's why selling face-to-face and selling on the phone, I feel like is cheating, because you can find everybody's objections and their pain points.
It's a lot easier that way.
Find it,
And I learned to sell that way, and I think that's why it's been so hard for me to like really get good at copy.
Yeah.
for that reason.
Well, and that's the thing, is you're not going to convert at the same percentage with written word, right, or video, but you can take, one of the ways to do it is you record yourself talking or selling over the phone or in person once, have it all transcribed, and then create a sales page based around what you're saying to those people. Record 5 different ones and you'll find the common themes, the objections, the stories, and then that becomes your sort of sales letter that can sit there for an extended period of time and make money while you sleep. So so we have an application process for us, and one of the questions is, how would your life change with an extra $5,000 to $10,000 a month? And some people go, oh, I would, I'd be able to live in this house or whatever, but it's the people who go, I'd be able to fly my parents or my wife's family over from the Philippines. I'd be able to finally spend time with my kids and stop being an absentee father. I'd be able to buy the house where my kids can actually play in the backyard instead of living in this little apartment. So the first thing I do when I talk to them is, man, I would love for you to be able to get that house where you and your kids can actually spend time together. Because the second that happens, the second you say that, all of their logic is gone. Because what happens is it's creating a very visual picture, because in that person's mind, they know what that house looks like in their mind. They know what it feels like to play with their kid. That turns off all of their logical mind and their skepticism and criticism and puts them into their feelings, and that's when they buy. Because you're not selling the result, you're not selling the house or the money, you're selling the feeling that comes from having those things. We sell freedom is really what I sell.
But it's interesting, and going back to the fitness analogy, and I've been selling fitness for a very long time, but when you said that we're not selling a result, I stopped for a second. I was like, well, shoot, like I feel that most successful gyms are selling a result, but then you story tell a little bit and then you use the copy, as I mentioned, you talk in sales copy, imagine how it would feel, and then all of a sudden I just got sucked in. So I'm hoping you felt that, because just even me sitting right there, my mind went to a completely different space.
Well, and that's like, so the result is maybe the promise, but it's called dimensionalized benefits, right? So you take this benefit of, having an extra $10,000 a month, but to dimensionalize that, and think of that as a 2D image, right? That's a 2-dimensional image. It's this flat image on a screen, and it's, I'll have $10,000 a month. It's why if your money goals are just to have more money, like there was a point where, if you have a certain amount in your bank account and your life's really good and you don't have to worry about money, suddenly you don't really have to make more money, so you stop making more money because you don't really need to. And the idea of the money in your head is just a bigger number in your account. Your brain can't understand that number means more. What it can understand is buying land that, I'm saying for my own, like for me personally, I bought this ranch or, house on a mountain. And when I'm there, it's like I'm sitting there visualizing what I'm going to build in this part of the property. What I want to buy the 13 acres next door. I want to do things. My brain, I have feelings about those things because I want to build those things and bring people out to it and do some crazy shit out there. And so that motivates me to make more money, because that gives me a feeling. I'm imagining my future reality of these people being out at my ranch and us doing, the stuff that I want to do. But your brain can't really attach to just numbers, right? So if you say, man, I'm going to get you to 7% body fat, it's like, okay. But it's like, no, you're going to be the most shredded guy on the beach. You're going to be, imagine what it's going to feel like to walk down the beach and every girl, even if they're there with their boyfriend, looks at you because they can't help it. That's the feeling. And for everybody, it's something different. It's not necessarily something so vast. And I think it's important also to make promises that are realistic. So like our whole promise with 90 Days of Freedom is how to make an extra $5,000 to $10,000 a month working, 5 to 10 hours a week. That's much more believable than all these guys saying, oh man, you're gonna have $100,000 days, you're gonna do 6 figures a month. They might do 6 figures a month, but most people can't even imagine $100,000 in a month. They can barely imagine 5,000.
It's so funny that you mentioned this because we shoot part of our franchise, case studies and high quality marketing testimonial videos, and a lot of the transformations we push out are incredible, 100-pound weight loss, etc. But the one that's going out tomorrow is actually a 3-month case study of someone who just joined the Fit Body Bootcamp gym and they lost 16 pounds. And the whole goal behind that, it's not like holy smokes, it's not like $100,000 in a month. But it's attainable. It's for Mrs. or Mrs. Jones who are like, shoot, I need to lose 30 pounds, but if this person can do it in like 3 months and drop 16 pounds, well then I can do it as well.
Yeah, I don't need to lose 100 pounds. It's not easy to identify. It's like for an obese person, they want to see a testimonial from another obese person. From a person who needs to lose 10 pounds, that doesn't really make sense to them because that's not where they're at. So it's like anytime using testimonials or stories, try and find stories that relate to that person. Or if it's a sales page or a VSL, I'll use like 3 different testimonials, one from each sort of age group or type of person. So you don't want to give 3 testimonials of 26-year-old dudes who each had this result. It's like, oh, this is what happened to this 22-year-old kid. Here's what happened to this 44-year-old mother of 3 who's pregnant and she was making money while she was doing all this. And then here's John who's, 59 or, we've got 68 years old who barely knew how to use a computer who's now making money, right? So you give them this wide range of experiences and they may not identify with all 3, but they're going to pick one that makes sense to them. But the feeling stuff is really, I think, from a copy perspective, your big idea is the most important part of your copy. So the words, so a big idea would be sort of what is the hook of that sales letter? What is the thing that's like for the water filters, our big thing was fluoride. We had one of the only filters that removed fluoride, and fluoride's horrible for you, and it's in all the water. It's literally added into the water for people to consume. The dentist who made basically fluoride popularized in dentistry went on to write scientific papers about how bad it is for people. That was what, it's bad for you. And so fluoride was our big idea. That was our big hook that worked really well for that.
Your core story, your core philosophy of all the copy that you write is around
removing fluoride. And your offer can be if you have a really good offer, because then we did a free plus shipping on a $70 pitcher, and we did crazy amounts of money on that. So you can lead with your offer if that's the best part. But the big idea would be, there was a famous sales letter, it's End of America, right? James Altucher, they did probably $100 million for his crypto product, a couple years ago. When there's a big boom going on or something like that, like there were big, one of them was like cannabis cowboys type thing, right? Like there's all this money to be made in the cannabis industry now that it's being legalized. That's your big idea. And if you can have a great big idea with mediocre copy and make a bunch of money, and you can have great copy, really well written, good ideas with decent, like good structure, great copy, and have a lackluster big idea, and it can do nothing. So the writing itself isn't as important as the idea and the story. And that's why I think storytelling is sort of the shortcut. And what I would say is tell the stories, and that's one of the chapters in my book, is literally tell the stories that scare you the most. It's like that story I tell about Poseidon, about my dog, and I may tell it here tomorrow during the keynote, but like I still get scared of telling that story. And I do stand up and and I speak and I get nervous sometimes before stand up, but it's more just I get excited.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna tell the Poseidon story, I get nervous sometimes just because people always ask, do you get nervous before you speak? I'm like, no, I don't. Because speaking compared to stand up is like turning down the volume, right? It's like driving a car 5 miles an hour versus 150.
So are you saying if you want to get better at presenting and speaking,
go do stand-up? Absolutely.
100%.
The shortcut to go do stand-up is pick the most embarrassing story of your life, the story you thought you'd never tell anyone, and you go tell that on stage. That story about how you pooped your pants, the story about how you got rejected by that girl, the story about how you got mistaken for a girl when you were 13 years old and were asked to try on a girl's t-shirt because they thought you were one. Those are the stories that you go up and tell.
That's stand up.
Yeah.
But I've also, we've talked before, you ran a training for our franchise as well. I believe you said also in copy, driving emotion, but also telling embarrassing stories really connect you. So in a similar way.
Well, yeah. So like if I go up and I tell that story about my dog and Feed the Wolf and how that all came to be, like people will be crying in the audience. I may get teary-eyed, and that emotion, like not a single person. I'll be at these conferences and there's people that are, people go up and speak and people have their computers out and their phones out. And I'm not saying it's because I'm some incredible speaker or something, but When I tell that story, there is not a single person who is on their phone. There's not a single person who is on their computer. Every single person is listening to that story. That's the power. The power of a great story is also that people will change their entire relationship to you based on one story. One story can turn somebody from an email subscriber who might have read none of your emails to somebody who reads every single thing you put out. One story that you tell on stage will be, people come up to me years later and would be like, that story was, I was actually, so my concussion doctor, I got in a fun snowboarding accident.
Okay.
Last year.
I was going to say, I thought we were playing
this
tennis.
Year, in February.
Okay.
I do all sorts of stupid stuff.
Okay.
And went headfirst into a tree, and the girl who was the receptionist there, after I'd come in a few different times, she's like, hey, do you have a husky? I was like, yeah. She's like, I think I saw a video you did a few years ago. I mean, it was like probably 3 years ago, 4 years ago almost, maybe 4. And it was my story about Poseidon. I put it on Facebook, and it got like 9 million views just organically. And it's just, I mean, in the comments are like, 8 paragraphs of somebody talking about their dog with pictures, and they're crying and all this stuff. And I was like, she's like, I remember that video. I'm like, she remembered that video from 3 years earlier.
Ian, we were talking about how you're going to roll with the keynote tomorrow, but I do, after this, anticipation of the story, is it fair to ask you can tell the Feed the Wolf Poseidon story tomorrow?
I will tell it tomorrow.
Thank you,
I will
sir.
tell it tomorrow, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Not here, I'm sorry.
I'm excited, sorry
yeah.
guys, but intense.
Yeah, it's an intense story, and so another sort of trick with all this is the more you feel, the more they will feel. So I wrote the story first. So the first time I wrote that story, like I had a buddy who, he texted me right after I'd posted, and he was like, screw you, man. He's like, I was sitting on a plane reading that story, just crying, sitting next to my girlfriend. She's like, what is going on? And he's like, and also men cry on planes. It's a very weird thing. I don't know if you guys know this. I don't know if you guys experience this. Men cry on planes. There's some...
Maine, our awesome camera dude in the back's laughing.
Yeah,
so
he's
I
laughing.
would imagine he's seen
He's
that
like,
too.
I've never cried before in my life. Dude, I
Hardly.
cried watching Men in Black 3 on a plane. That's not even a sad movie. I have a weird issue with black father-son movies. White father-son doesn't do anything for me. Okay. Black father-son movies, I get so teary-eyed. John Q, when Denzel Washington is yelling, I will not bury my son. My son will bury me. I'm just crying. But I cried watching Men in Black 3 on a plane. I'm like, this is not a sad, go watch it. It's the worst of the Men in Blacks.
Okay. I didn't even know there was a 3,
nobody knew there was a Men in Black 3, just me on the plane that one's on. And it was just at the end, I'm just like, why am I, but there's a thing. Men cry on planes. There's some explanation of oxygen and stuff. I don't know what it is. Not me, of course, but other men. But I was writing that story actually on a plane. And I was, when I was writing that story the first time, there were a lot of raw emotions going on. And if you can write from a place of feeling, they're going to feel, and this is sort of a woo-woo thing, but the energy that you put into the words gets transferred into that piece of paper or into those words, and then that person can feel them on the other end. And an easier way to explain it is through doing stuff on camera. The best advice I give people, after I started doing stuff on camera, I would direct people and sort of help them with their copy as they're speaking and being on camera. And the biggest thing was just getting people to feel, because the energy that you have gets transferred through that camera lens and into the person watching. So you can say the same exact words, same sales script, record it 3 different times with 3 different energies, and one of them would outperform by double or 50% the other one. Let's say 33 to 50% typically from another one, because of the energy and because of your feeling.
And you know this from all the split testing you've done.
I've seen legitimate stats on this stuff. It's, if you record something in the wrong mental place or with the wrong energy, they can feel that. The people watching can feel that. So your goal is to put the energy and the feeling into what it is that you're doing, because they're gonna. It's like if I bought something today, like a $4,000 thing on NFTs today.
You did?
Yeah, I'm pretty amped about it actually.
We have to talk. I don't know if it fits this episode.
It may not, but I'm happy to go into it. But
yeah.
This guy actually, I'll just shout him out, I guess. His name's Ben Slater, and I bought his book, and I liked his copy, and it was like a free plus shipping book, and I bought it, and I actually read most of it. It was like systems for businesses stuff, and But I didn't read any of his emails after, because he doesn't email very often, which is his biggest mistake. You should email pretty much every day.
Daily.
And he doesn't email very often, but a couple weeks ago I got one that said like, you know, $185,000 in a day. And I'm like, all right, I opened it and I'm, you know, reading, I was interested, but I was doing other, and this is the thing, somebody may just be doing other stuff, right? Or most people, they read your email and they finish pooping and then they close the phone. It's not that they didn't want to buy it, it's that they finished in the bathroom. But I was playing FIFA. I was just playing video games yesterday, and it was like halftime in the match, and I opened an email and I looked at it and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna watch this thing. I never watch people's webinars. Watch like an hour and 5 minutes of it. And I've never, ironically, I do webinars and stuff, but I haven't watched that long of one. And that's what you never know, is that person may just happen to be in a time where they have free time, and I'm just sitting there playing video games and, you know, just click. I'm like, you know what, I'll watch this for a little while. I'll put it on while I'm playing, and suddenly I'm like super into it and deep into it. And then I messaged him, and funny enough, he was like, oh, dude, I've been watching your ads for years. Because I have the parody characters, if you've seen those.
No.
Have you not seen those?
No.
There's Can't Gardone, Ly Topez, Very Grinder Chuck, Muscle Funson.
Oh, goodness.
All these different...
I haven't seen that, but I like where this is going.
Yeah, so I have all these parody characters. That's sort of how people found me originally online. And so he's like, oh, dude, I watch your ads. I love Can't Gardone. That shit made me laugh. But the reason I'm bringing all this stuff up, Can't Gardone, baby, 10X, you know? Was because his energy on the webinar, I could tell, and he did it live originally, but he was like, he was so passionate, and he believes, I'm like, I don't know how much I believe in NFTs and different, I do believe crypto is going to continue to rise just because the dollar is so unstable, and 40% of the US money was printed in the last year.
Yeah, 18 months.
Yeah.
The reason I say this, I
crazy.
just made my first crypto investment yesterday, so that's why it's like top of mind.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
I did. I put some money into. I actually been hesitant about like writing this one email out because I put like 40 grand into this one, and it got up to like 250,000, and I'm like, can I tell people that, or am I gonna get my shit stolen? So I'm like weird about it, but so now I've got this money, and I'm gonna move it over and do some NFT stuff. But the reason I say all this is because he was so passionate on it, and I could tell. I don't necessarily know that I believe in NFTs as a long-term thing. It's kind of insane to me. It's just like people want to own a digital fucking picture. Like he's saying, I can still look at the picture. I don't own it, but you own it, and now it's worth something. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't.
But I do believe that it's going to be a crazy trend where we could make enough money over the next, 3 months to a year. That's like, genuine, like millions of dollars. Walk away from stuff if you feel like it, like in cash. So I'm interested. But I don't know if I believe in NFTs, but I believe that he believes that he is right. 100%. I could feel his energy.
Say that one more time.
I believe that he believes he's right.
I teach this to our phoners because if you have enough conviction, a lot of times, like the buyer, in this case, fitness client, maybe doesn't doubt that your program doesn't work, just won't work for her. But if you believe that, well, you said it best. If you as a salesperson have so much conviction that the person on the other side of the table maybe not think this actually work, but they believe that you believe it's going to work, so they take action. And that's the same thing you just heard here.
Right, and I believe 100% that he believes that it's going to go crazy and crush. Yeah. And because of that, I'm sending him $4,000 or whatever for the program. And I'm happy I'm excited to. That's the thing, is when you're excited to pay somebody to do it, like I'm really looking forward to it. But it's that I don't sell stuff I don't believe in because I can't. I just don't feel good about it. I have a buddy who just approached me about a water filter thing, and I was like, I saw the technology, and I was like, I don't know if I believe in this technology. Then I actually went through and they've improved all their filtration. So I'm like, okay, yeah, now I can sell this. Okay. But if it wasn't, I wouldn't have cared if they offered me a bunch of money. I'm not going to help them if I don't believe in the water filter. Sure. I'm not going to go tell people to drink fucking dirty water. Sure. It's not. If somebody asked me to go consult for Brita, I wouldn't touch it with a fucking 50-yard stick because that pitcher is a piece of shit and it's killing people and it's disgusting to me.
So I should throw my Brita away.
You should throw your Brita away. It's not even a filter. All it does is reduce some chlorine. Okay. It's a glorified cold water container. Okay. It's bullshit.
There you go. Buyer beware.
That was our big idea for the filter. To go back to that big idea thing, was our main subject line that worked for affiliates and everything was a Brita cannot filter this. because that was the thing that everybody already understood. And we would show demos. But so back to this sort of this guy and buying into his stuff, it was that belief and that passion sold me more so than, because he didn't actually teach much about NFTs necessarily. It's hard to understand in general. It's such a weird world. I'm not stupid, but I'm like, I don't know what this stuff is. Oh, you got to mint a coin and all this. I'm like, what do you put it under a pillow? It's a mint? Like, what the fuck is this? I don't know what you're talking about. But his passion just came through. And he told a story on the webinar about how his, two of his employees, their father passed away like 3 days before he was doing this, unexpectedly, and died. And the mom didn't know what she was going to do. And he starts like tearing up on the call. And he was talking about how in their community that he's built, they're going to give 10% of their profits from that week. He was going to do it, and then other people in the group decided the same thing to that family, to the mother in that family. And so he's like teary-eyed on the call, and I could tell that he's a genuine person, you know. And so I was like, all right, like that's really what sold me, was his passion, not the system or anything. Because he didn't give that much of the system of how to actually trade NFTs and stuff. And the big idea, and the big idea though too is that there's basically this wild west of this crypto world that there's 60 million people own crypto, which is crazy to think it's only 60 million people who actually own crypto. And there's only 200,000 people who own NFT. Well, there were 200,000 a month ago. There's like 600,000 now. So it's still you're still in the 1% of whatever it'll be later on. And so there's always massive gains to be had in a volatile, crazy market like that. So that's a big idea too, is you're just leaning into, like, the reason why the Bitcoin offers did so well and like why James Altucher's stuff did so well is there's just, when something gets so popular that your parents and, you know, when people in their 70s know about Bitcoin and they're talking about it at dinner tables, there's so much greed in the air that people don't, there's so much FOMO, there's so much fear of missing out. The fear is what it is the fear is that you're going to wake up in 5 years and not have done the thing that somebody else did, and they're going to be really rich. The funny thing is, I told all my friends, and the other part about this guy's presentation is, you know, he wants other people to do well, and I told him, I'm like, look, if I talked to him today, and I'd never met him before, but I was like, if this works really well for me, I'll promote this to my list and my audience, and if I can crush it over the next few weeks, I'm gonna sell the shit out of this because I'm gonna believe in it. If I do fine, I'd be like, hey, this is kind of risky, maybe don't. But if I believe and I get on there, and the reason I want to sell it isn't to make the money from the commissions. I had a friend who said this, he's like, it feels great to win and to level up, but it feels way better to win with your friends. And it's like, I told quite a few of my friends to get in on the coin that I did, and everybody who did is 10x their money. And my business partner ironically didn't, and he was going to put in more than anybody else. And like, he'd literally just have $1 million sitting there right now in cash, you know, in liquid cash, well, in the coin. But like, he didn't, you know. And so it's like, I like to, that passion comes through. If you like, bring it back to fitness, right? The worst thing to me, and this can be politically incorrect, and I don't really care if this one is, what I call fatness instructors. Right, the overweight guy who's the personal trainer, or the fat person who's selling the supplements or stuff. I remember I saw him with this guy who's probably 300 pounds, not in like very overweight, selling a greens powder, and I'm like, what? It doesn't make sense. And I'm not shaming, fat shaming, or doing any of that. I'm just saying that it's very much like if I'm sitting here teaching you how to make money and I'm broke. Right, or I'm sitting here like, here's how to write copy, and I've sold $50 worth of products. It doesn't make sense. If you don't believe in what you're selling, then you shouldn't be selling it. That belief and that conviction is one of the most important parts. It makes everything easy. Because if you believe in it completely, then people are going to buy it. Like, that's what, bring back to that guy. It's like, I know that he believes that he is going to be doing me a huge service by me buying his product. And that makes me want to buy it.
Love it. All right, so we talked about emotion, we talked about leading with strong headlines, storytelling, getting people to feel what you're going through. One of the last things I want to hit in terms of just, some good gold that you can pass along. One of the things that we talked about one of the last times we chatted was writing shorter copy and removing commas. So can you kind of elaborate a little bit that just on the theme of, different aspects of writing good copy?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest issues, so did I say that one before or now? Stopping with your writing? That was before we started this.
I think that was,
I don't remember, okay.
But if not,
we talked for a few minutes before and I can't remember anymore. So the best thing you can do in your writing is to stop stopping. Don't allow yourself to stop typing.
Oh, you did say that.
I did. I said that here. Yeah. Good. Reinforcing the lesson. That's another persuasion trick, to be honest, is reinforcing things. So some people thought Trump was an idiot when he would say things again and again, but he would say those on purpose. Whatever you think about Trump, if you want to learn about persuasion, that's a person to go watch. And everything was planned. I remember seeing like some comedian going like, oh, he had toilet paper on his shoe. What an idiot. I'm like, you think that was an accident? You think that toilet paper on his shoe was an accident? You think he walked all that way and got in the limo and had toilet paper? No, that was planted. Everybody was talking about him. I don't even watch the news, and I knew that happened. So if you look at him, he repeats things over and over, because if you say things 3-4 times, people remember it and they understand it, and it becomes ingrained in your mind. When it comes to writing, you want to stop stopping. The other thing is use periods, not commas. Rarely use commas. If somebody could go through all the books that have been written in the past and turn a bunch of the commas into periods, those books would be better, because a comma signals to pause. And it creates run-on sentences, it creates boring sentences. I'm not saying never use commas, but for the most part, don't use them very often, especially in email copy, because email copy is very fast. So if you're putting commas in it, what's happening is people are having to stop every time there's a comma. Mm-hmm. They're pausing in their mind. And then the best advice I could ever give to improve your writing, first off, hand copy great. If there's something that compels you to buy something or something that you like, if you read a great email, hand copy it. If you read a great sales letter, hand copy it. It will make you better than anything else. And the other thing is, there's something called HemingwayApp.com. It's free. I've used it for 10 years, and it's people who like buy the desktop version. Go ahead. They do. People should support them. They're the best product ever. But I've never even paid for it. You just go to the web app, Hemingway.com or HemingwayApp.com, and put in your writing, and it shows you if you're using the passive voice, active, adverbs, stuff like that, but it gives you a grade level. And all the best copy is written at the 3rd grade level. So people think, I literally say this selling our program, if you can write at a 3rd grade level, you already have the skills to make money online. And that's the truth. Most people write at too high a level. I had a guy take a piece of copy from 11th grade. I said, this was when I used to do coaching. And I was like, I'm not going to look at your copy until it's at least the 6th grade level, because it's a waste, because all I'm going to do is critique the writing. I'm not even going to get into the ideas. He changed it from 11th grade to 6th grade. I didn't even get to look at it yet. They got a 66% lift just from making it easier to, because it's 3rd grade level doesn't mean it's hard or it's stupid. It means that it's concise and clear and easy to understand. If you look at music, the most popular music is all that it is actually at a 3rd grade level. Eminem, probably the best lyrical, right? 3rd grade level. Nickelback, 5th grade level. Most hated band there is. They write at a 5th grade level. Kesha is at like 2nd grade. Beyonce is like 1st grade. But you want to write at a 3rd grade level because it's persuasive, it's easy to understand. So go to HemingwayApp.com, put all of your writing into that for like 2 months until you get things all down to a 3rd grade level, then just check in every once in a while. And avoid the passive voice. The passive voice is typically something that ends in ing. So like, we were being crazy yesterday, right? We were crazy yesterday. There's a difference in that active versus passive, right? The fox was jumping over the hole. The fox jumped over the hole. So if you're using a lot of ing language, that's typically a sign that it's passive, and passive is boring. Passive is passive. It's not interesting. You want active, punchy writing. Occasionally have one-word sentences and fragments and break the rules of writing, but it should be active voice, use passive as little as possible, which typically is ing is a way to do that.
Dude, I have never heard of that, but the last few conversations, every single time now I write a piece of copy, I'm like, shit, no commas, periods, short choppy, like you're in my head, man, which I love.
Like it. I'm glad. The ing thing's big because I have one of our employees now, I've been trying, he's writing not as me for the main email list, but some of our like buyer sequences. and he still writes passive voice, and he's like, all right, well, how do I stop? And I was like, look for ing, and that like changed things for him. He's like, that's what it is. And or like he was doing this, like he jumped, not he was jumping.
He was doing this is
right.
also passive.
Yeah,
doing
exactly.
Yeah.
He was, so typically ing,
he did this.
not always, yeah, he did this. And it's like, you can feel like, John didn't know he was gonna die last night. Like there's this active punch to that type of copy. So
love it, man.
There's another part.
Freaking mind blown, just gold over here. All right, Ian, well, I'm jacked up for tomorrow, just as a good segue.
It's gonna be fun.
And I know you guys gotten a ton of value. I certainly had, and I've been loosely in the copywriting game for a while, but it's by far my weakest out of the high impact skills of presenting, negotiating, salesmanship in person.
Hand copying, that's it.
All right, my friend.
That's the secret.
All right, well, dude, you've been so generous with your time. I still have a few questions left in the lightning round.
Let's go. I hope there's some weird questions. He told me about this before. He's like, there's going to be a lightning round. Is there anything I can't ask him? I don't care.
You're easy, man. This is like one of the joviest, relaxed, easiest interviews I've done, so I credit you for that. I'm being completely serious. Advice. You're in the business of giving great advice to your students on copy. What would be one of the best pieces of advice you've ever received and why?
Around copy?
No, in general. Or it could be copy, but it just in life.
I'd say in general, this is the thing that I tend to repeat the most for other people, and it was the most impactful thing for me, is don't do a bunch of different shit. Just do one thing and get really good at that thing, and then start doing other stuff. Like, I had a mentor last year, around June, he was like, stop doing everything else for 6 months that's not this one thing, and that's when we created the 90 Days to Freedom program. That's now the flagship program of our company. And the way he described it was you're trying to start a fire with a magnifying glass, and the second you start to get it to some smoke, you move the magnifying glass somewhere else. You're trying to push 2 boulders up a hill, the second one gets some momentum, you move. So I think most people are just too distracted.
Yeah.
If you can, don't touch your phone for the first hour or 2 of your day. The days I do that, it's a completely different thing. It changes your dopamine in your brain. It changes the way that you react to the world. If you can slow down and do one thing really well and stop being distracted, that's the single most important thing I think almost anybody could do.
Well, man, if you could hit on that tomorrow as well, because we're reading for the mastermind group that we're here in Texas for, reading a book called Essentialism, which actually I think is authored by an English guy.
Yeah,
and that's
Greg
the whole
McKeown.
premise. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, next up, Leaders Are Readers. What would be a pivotal book that you've read, or a piece of content in general, that helped you in your path that could help our audience?
The Surrender Experiment is always going to be my first recommendation.
The Surrender Experiment.
Yeah, by Michael Singer. I've read it, I think now 16 times in the past 3 years.
Okay.
It's literally the foundation for my entire life. Everything is happening. It's, reality is happening. It's you either, in every moment you have 2 options. You either resist or surrender. You either accept reality and deal with it, or you resist and you're unhappy. And to me, that book is the most impactful book in the world. He also wrote The Untethered Soul, which some people like that more. That's more of a how-to, I would say. And then if I had to make one other recommendation, it would be The Big Leap, which is all about self-sabotage and essentially the upper limit problem. I think one of our biggest purposes of being human is to learn how to increase our tolerance for good feelings. So we basically have a threshold for how good we think we're allowed to feel. And as we start to rise up to that threshold, we find ways to fuck shit up. And you're gonna have to bleep that part, sorry, but it's worth saying because that's what people do, is they self-sabotage. And what will happen is, their business starts to do really well, and they'll start to eat shitty foods. They'll start to get in great shape, and they'll fight with their wife. They'll start to have their relationship goes well, and they mess up their business. And those are the 3 core areas of your life, right? Your relationship, your health, and your money. And so most people can't tolerate having good feelings all around, and so they find ways to continuously bring themselves down. The Big Leap makes you aware of, it doesn't necessarily give an exact solution, but it makes you aware of your self-sabotage patterns and why you're doing it. And I'd say in the business world, so many people mess up as they get really close to getting what they want. They find a way to screw it up.
Dude, I have a family member in the exact same situation, so that is for sure, for 100%.
Yeah, I used to tell people, you've got a list of books, and everybody's going to tell you books, and you're going to put this at the bottom, put it at the top. The Surrender Experiment to me is, it's my favorite, but The Big Leap is very, very useful for just about every human.
Well, The Surrender Experience, I haven't read it, but I'm going to make a note here. I'm a recovering alcoholic, so to me, like acceptance and surrendering, that's like step number 1, so that's speaking my language.
Yep.
All right, my friend, 2 questions left. Habits, they're foundational for success in business, entrepreneurship, and life in general. What was a habit that you've acquired over the years that exponentially helped you?
The best habit in the world, and I haven't been as good about this lately, is not touching your phone for a while in the morning. My goal is to get till like noon without touching it.
Noon.
It changes. That's my goal is no phone till noon. I've just had this weird thing just like going in my mind saying that. But for just about anybody, even if I just do an hour, it changes everything. Because literally your brain, if you start out your day with touching a phone, then what happens is you get way more dopamine in those first 5 minutes of a day. Think about how much dopamine you used to get released, and dopamine being the feel-good chemical in your brain that's the reward center that makes you keep doing stuff. When you're scrolling Instagram, you may get dopamine hits 20 times in a 5-minute period. Mm-hmm. If you think back 100 years, you may have had a dopamine release in your brain 20 times in a day if you had a good life. So what you're doing is you're rewiring your brain first thing in the morning to expect constant immediate rewards. The number one indicator of success, scientifically proven to be the number one indicator of success, is delayed gratification. It's the marshmallow test. They give a kid a marshmallow, say if you wait 15 minutes we'll give you 2. Most kids are like, I'm gonna eat this one. Boom. I never understood that, because when I was a kid, if I got something, I'm like, well, you told me I'll get more if I wait? I'll wait.
I'd wait too.
Fucking sit right here and do it. And I have crazy ADD.
I'll take 2.
And I'll still, I'm gonna take 2 marshmallows. I don't even like marshmallows, but if it was, But that is the number one indicator of success, is delayed gratification. So if you're creating a feedback loop in your brain where you're constantly signaling that it needs dopamine, that's going to be your reality. So I'm not saying, I'll be transparent, I haven't been good about it lately, but when I do that well, that changes everything. And then the other habit would be have fun. Everybody fucking forgets how to have fun. People
Myself
get rich
included,
and they forget how to have fun, and I'm like, you gotta have a good time. What is the point of all of this stuff if you're not having fun? So schedule your fun into your life, because if you don't schedule, everybody schedules their business and then their life falls into the cracks outside of it. Schedule your life and then let the business fall into the cracks in between that. Like, make sure you're doing fun stuff. It's literally, what is the point? If you talk to your 10-year-old self and told them what you do, would they be depressed or would they be stoked? If I told my 10-year-old self what I did, I think for the most part, he'd be like, damn, that's pretty cool.
Good job, Ian.
Yeah, you get to go do fun. I don't mean that in an arrogant way. Like, you get to go do fun stuff, that's great. Like, I'm not like, I sit in front of a computer for 8 hours and I'm miserable. He'd be like, that's stupid. Why are you so stupid, old me? And I'd be like, I don't know, man. This is a really depressing conversation.
You're talking to coffee right now, Ian.
Yeah. There you go.
All right, my friend, last question for you. This has been awesome, man. I've learned a lot. I know you guys have got a ton of value as well. What's your last piece of parting wisdom for our audience who, again, interested in fitness, business, entrepreneurship, bettering their lot in life?
Man. You already went through my book recommendation.
Yeah, I was going to say
the habits. What is my best recommendation? My recommendation is to build the life that you want, not the one that other people want, or the one that you think other people want you to have. It's very easy to get caught up in the idea of having more for the sake of more, or building the life that you think other people would think is cool. I lived a lot of my life with this imaginary piece of paper that was like all my accomplishments, thinking that there was this resume that people go, oh man, that Ian guy's so cool, he did all this stuff. And it's like, if it's not for you, it doesn't matter. So if you're gonna build a business, if you're gonna work a job, do something you enjoy. If you hate what you do 8 hours a day, you're gonna hate, it doesn't matter how much surrender you do or how much you let go. Like, if you hate 8 hours a day,
you're hating your life.
You hate your life.
Yeah.
And do some better shit.
Do some better shit. That is your piece
Put that
of
on a
parting
t-shirt.
wisdom. All right, my friend, before we wrap, what is the best way our audience can connect with you at?
You can follow my Instagram at Becoming Ian Stanley. That's more comedy stuff now. I've leaned in on that side. The Instagram Almost Passive Income is where we do the business stuff. You can go to feedthewolf.com if you want to get on my email list and see what I write and how I make money. And then I did write a book called Confessions of a Persuasion Hitman, and that's just at persuasionhitman.com. It's free. You pay the shipping. It's like $5.89. So that's probably it. And YouTube. I'm on YouTube, Ian Stanley. Just the same as my name. I post stuff on there too.
Love it, man. Before we wrap, I want to acknowledge you. This has been awesome. I was expecting to learn copy, which I have, but man, holy smokes. when you talked about your keynote tomorrow being like, yeah, I just kind of roll with it. I've been in your ethers for a while, and I've had a lot of recommendations. Craig Ballantyne told me you are the best presenter keynote that he's ever seen. So obviously that was a big vote of confidence. Having this conversation here, there's no doubt in my mind tomorrow we're just going to crush it.
It's going to be fun, man. 4 hours.
But it's been a pleasure, my friend. So
yeah,
thank
you very much for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, friends, I know you got a ton of value today, and assuming you did, go ahead and give us a like and subscribe on YouTube and write us an awesome review on iTunes. That way we can keep producing this content for you for free. And that's all for today. Ian, thanks again, my friend, and see you in the next episode.